Hello everyone, and welcome back to CyberSensei's podcast, the definitive podcast for cybersecurity educators brought to you by Cyberbit. My name is Shaha, and I'm CyberSensei's podcast producer. I'm here once again, and as I said, welcome back to most of you, and hello for first-timers. As always, we're glad to have Adam with us. Hi, Adam.
Nice.
And I'm very happy to say that we'll have a great guest for 2 sessions in a row. Diego, hi, Diego.
Hello.
And we'll get back to you shortly. And just before we start, a few reminders to our live audience. First of all, thank you for coming, and we're very glad you're here. The reason that we're having these sessions live is because we want to hear from you. We want you to have direct access to our senseis. This time it will be Diego, asking questions, consult about anything without any hesitations, and that's why we're here. So please use the Q&A box to ask questions, and in about 25 minutes or so, we'll also open up the floor and you can use your mic, and we'll address all questions in the Q&A session. Another reminder is that this session is recorded, and we'll have the recording available for you on all leading podcast platforms and on the Cyberbit YouTube channel. And all updates will be on our LinkedIn profile, so please make sure you follow Cyberbit on LinkedIn as well. And so today we'll start with the first of 2 sessions, as I said, in which we'll host Diego Tibaquira to explore in depth a very unique case study, a very impressive case study as well, of Miami-Dade's college cybersecurity program. So Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Sahar. Hey, team, we want to bring you nuggets of wisdom each and every session. We want to challenge you with what we believe to be some of the leading practices in how to design, to build, and to grow your cybersecurity education programs to create the best work-ready talent that you can. So today and the next session, we're really honored to somebody who's walked this journey from cradle to grave, from zero to hero, as they say. And Diego joins us today to talk about his program and his journey, both personally and professionally at Miami-Dade. So Diego, can you give us a quick introduction to both your personal background, how you came to this, and then, of course, your current role? Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Cyber Sensei. My name is Diego Tibaquira. I'm a professor of computer science at Miami-Dade College. I teach cybersecurity and cloud computing. My personal background, I'm a former United States Marine. I served for 8 years as an aviation logistics. After that, I went to work for PepsiCo as a data analyst. After that, I worked for the federal government in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Defense and the National Security Agency. And now I'm at Miami-Dade College, where I came in to help build the cybersecurity program and the cybersecurity workforce that we have currently in place. A couple of years back, we didn't have anything, and it was a build that I'll talk more once we get into the podcast, but you got to have a couple of people that are committed to your program, both on the faculty side and from the administrative side, and I'll talk a little more about that. Our program was designed with the NSA, the Center of Academic Excellence, and the KUs in mind. We use the state frameworks, something that was already there, and then we formatted it to what we have. We talk about industry certifications. We ask the industry, are these relevant? They say yes. Professional development, both for our faculty and staff. And then, of course, the industry. We were able to bring the industry from the onset to give us advice, to tell us what they want in people graduating for programs like the ones we were going to design. So that's a short background into where we are right now, but we'll get more in depth once we get going into the podcast.
Diego, thank you for your service. Thank you for sharing your history and your background, and in advance of the lessons you're going to share with us here today and in our next session. So, these programs, they're hard to get started. They're hard to grow. They're hard to mature in this dynamic environment where you're competing with salaries in the commercial world, but you're trying to build a program to create just that kind of work-ready talent. Let's go back to the very start of your program. Talk to us about what time frame, what it was like when you first got to Miami-Dade, and how you started the program. How did you convince them? And if you tell that, and as you tell that story, if you would, I think the state of Florida has a unique context in your relationship with state. If you please describe the history of the program and your relationship with the state. Thanks.
Yeah, so took a couple of years. I was brought into Miami-Dade with the idea of helping develop cybersecurity programs. A couple of years went by, we were unable. until we have what is called an administrator champion. A new dean got hired, Antonio Delgado, and many people know him and of him. He's currently our vice president of innovation and technology partnerships at the college. But he, in the back of his mind, had the same ideas that I had, though we had not met before. He asked me in summer of 2017 to teach a boot camp for Security Plus. I was a little apprehensive. I didn't want to do boot camps at the time, but I saw it as an opportunity to start something going. And we had 20 students plus myself, 100% passing rate on the Security Plus boot camp. And from there, we started redesigning our courses. We started thinking of creating new programs. We applied for our first NSF, National Science Foundation, ATE grant. We were awarded, and then from there, kind of snowballed step by step, and I'll talk more detail. But that was the onset of our program. That was the birth of what we have now. We came to a place where two people, a champion in the administrator, a champion in the faculty, came together with the same ideals. We have the same end goal, even though we didn't talk about it at the beginning, and it was the CAE designation, and I'm going to talk more about that. But it happened that we both knew about it, and we both wanted that for the college in our programs. And so when you have two people that can move the programs in that way, it's going to be a much more successful way of developing it, and then getting it to get started, and then be able to keep it going.
Thanks, Diego. When you about 7 years ago, you do this boot camp. Who was the target audience of the boot camp?
So the other item that I recommend every institution or organization that wants to start something in cybersecurity is you have to know your demographics. And demographics in Miami are different than demographics in Kentucky, demographics in North Carolina. And through my time in the Marines and the federal government and everything, I've been to many different places around the country and the world. If you know your demographics, you'll be able to serve those communities better. So we knew what our demographics are: underrepresented minorities, not only underrepresented in general, but underrepresented in the field as well, Blacks, Hispanics. We came across a large group of underrepresented minorities in the field, and it's women. And sometimes we don't think about that, but women are well underrepresented in the field. So in that sense, those were the target populations that we had. Our grants have those words in it because we do want to reach out and increase. But that's the population that Miami-Dade College serves for the most part as well. We serve everybody, but that's the bulk of our population. So in that sense, those are the populations that we help.
Thanks. And in 2017, kind of give people a picture. How big was the college, the IT department, things that sort of the assets that you had a chance to start with when you built your cyber program?
So the college is fairly large. It's one of the largest colleges in the nation. Miami-Dade College at that time was 160,000 students, 8 campuses. But to be honest, when you start something, even at an institution that big, you still got to prove that there is something there. So at the beginning, we were kind of scratching for funds. Again, the fact that we had a brand new dean that came with the idea of reinvigorating the school and creating new things. So we had a little leeway in there. That allow us to go in and create some of these programs and like the boot camp and everything else at the beginning. But then later, funding from different grants has really catapulted us into being able to provide more of what we want in the programs that we have.
Awesome. And the professors, the instructors that you had a chance to start with, how many did you have a chance to bring around you 7 years ago?
Yes. So once we developed the program, our CCC, College Credit Certificate, and an AES in cybersecurity, then we had a discipline. Then we developed a brand new discipline committee in cybersecurity, and it's what I call the core 4 at Miami-Dade in cybersecurity. Professor Chris Kennard, Dr. Nelly DeLesi, Professor Rodolfo Cruz, and myself. We say yes from the beginning. This is a great idea. We want to help. We want to help with the curriculum development. We want to help with teaching the classes. We want to help with this brand new program, getting it off the ground, and it has come to be what it is now. There's more faculty now to the point that the college has hired cybersecurity faculty, not just computer science, but faculty that their main job is cybersecurity. So in that sense, it has grown in that way, but it was four of us that in the faculty side started it.
Awesome. And a lot of programs starting out, leverage the curriculum that's provided by CompTIA and SANS and others. How did you build your curriculum, and what was your original aim for that curriculum?
So it started with Security Plus. So that was the basis. That was that bootcamp that we did on Security Plus. And then realizing that the industry, once we brought it in, told us, yes, industry certifications do matter and count for us. If we see, talent that has a degree plus some industry certification, we look at them, maybe, put them a little ahead for the interview process and everything else. So in that sense, CompTIA became, and we had CompTIA before. We were doing A+ and Network Plus, but we had never done it at this point and at this level, to the point that now we actually have an entity at the college that deals with industry certifications as a whole in the way that we do them now. To the point that my final exam for any class with an industry certification is the actual certification. And I'll talk more about how involvement from the state comes with that for the state of Florida. So we're lucky in that way. But Easy Council, the guys that did Certified Ethical Hacker and ISC Square, the people that do CISSP. So in that sense, bringing all of them, becoming partners with all of them. So CISSP is not a class. We don't have a CISSP class. It's very high level, but it's something that we offer our faculty as professional development. You want to get your CISSP, you want to get your CEH, you want to get this, because we know if they go and get it, they're going to come back and be much better in the classroom in that sense. So in my case, I have certified in everything that I teach my students, and I encourage the faculty to do the same. It's different when you tell a student, I did it, and so I'm going to guide you to it, through it in that way. And in 2017, I had not done Security Plus, so I did it with the students in the bootcamp. So we all did it together. And that really puts skin on the game for everybody, and they appreciate that. The students appreciate that.
Very cool. So to back up, you have a very large school, 160,000 students, 8 campuses. Sometimes getting something started at a big school is harder than a smaller medium school to get the attention. You found an advocate. You had the 4 horsemen. You had the 4, key leaders that you could build around. You had a good IT program. So then you do this boot camp, and then you leverage some of the curriculum that's available from EC Council, CompTIA, and others. And now you're maturing the program. So now it's 2 or 3, 4 years later. Now you've got to decide to fund it. And I know, what's the joke? Money isn't everything, but whatever's in second place is way behind. So now you have to go over grants, and you've got to convince the leadership to fund your program. Talk to us about how you went after the grants and what made you so successful in pursuing the grants.
Again, I'm going to bring up the name of Antonio Delgado, our new vice president, former dean. He was very adamant that was a way for us to fund certain things. But through the pandemic and after the pandemic, because we came right around the pandemic when we started doing this. So the pandemic, a lot of programs suffer. We were the only program in the college that had an upward increase in enrollment through the pandemic, to the point that we went from 0 to a couple of hundred to about 1,000, 1,200 students strong we have right now. The one thing, we always trying to see what else can we do? How can we graduate them in a faster way? How can we provide them with jobs in a better way? So we have implemented a lot of different things in that way. But when the college sees that the program is increasing in numbers in that way, they have placed a lot of eyes and emphasis on cybersecurity. But we also now have AI. We have the first program in AI in the state. We have cloud security, cloud programming and cloud computing, which I teach as well. That kind of grew at the same time with cybersecurity. So in that sense, once the college saw that, also I think after the pandemic, not only the college, but population in general realized that technology is here to stay, and the best that we harvest technology, the better we're going to be in that sense. And through the pandemic, we heard ransomware, and I love it that now everybody says VPN and everybody knows what it is. Before the pandemic, not many people did. So in that sense, we are a more technological society, and that is here to stay. So cybersecurity is in the center of it. The more secure that we are, the better we are.
So let me play some back things here to you, Diego. First of all, I'm guessing that you might not actually be a carbon-based life form. You might be as hard as you work and as successful as you've been. I'm wondering if you're really human. So anyway, congratulations again to all you've done. But let's go back. To write a good grant typically takes a clear value proposition, but it also takes somebody who knows how to write the grant. And then you, with your time in the college, you've got to invest in doing that. How did that all come together? Because it takes time and money to write the grants, and they're hard to write. How did you do that?
Yes, and actually we're in the midst of writing a new one. So we have found out that the grant writing and the grants come for a limited period of time. It's not, forever investment. And our first one was 250,000, and our first team was the dean, a grant writer, and myself. And it was the three of us coming up with the idea. The college has found that grants do provide us with great opportunities. So they actually have a grant writing arm of the college that helps with anybody that wants to write a grant. And the reason for that is those people will know what the NSF, language is, or what NSA. And it's a full-time person that they will assign to you to help you. Other colleges don't have that, and so at that point in other colleges, it's a lot harder. And I know that because the dean has to help write the grant and the vice presidents and everybody else. But we do put a lot of effort in there. But again, the dean, the administrators kind of carry that load. Once we get the grant, then it comes on my shoulders to execute and help, come to life what we put on that grant. But in that sense, you are 100% correct. And finding the time, I don't know. It's just, you got to believe that there's something that is going to be good for the college, but more so is going to be good for your students. And if you believe that, then those things happen. The first one is the hardest. Then the second one becomes a little easier, but it still is those pages and pages of writing and then convincing. But once you have a program that has done it and you can actually, say this is a continuation, we have done some of these things, and we're helping so many students in so many different ways. These are the jobs. I think it makes it a little easier, but to start, you just got to have those people that really believe in what you want to do and make it happen.
It's interesting. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be having breakfast with one of our prior podcast guests, Dr. Anyway, here at Fayetteville Tech Community College, he's been promoted to be the president of that. And I'm really blessed is it just a quick summary is every time I talk to somebody like you, there's a tour de force. There's somebody with just this driving force behind these programs. It quite often takes to get them off the ground. And Dr. Mark Sorrells here at Fayetteville Tech Community College was the same way for them here. So again, I know how hard this is to do, and I'm learning from you along the way. So I'm going to weave in. Joseph has some questions here in the chat. I'm going to weave in some of those as I ask you, because my program also started off sort of being leveraging the curricula for the certification bodies, because I knew that the certifications, if they're not on your resume, it's really hard to get the job. But pretty soon you have to mature beyond that to being like, and I'm not going to say they're purely theoretical. I mean, clearly there's a lot of practical stuff in the Net Plus and Sec Plus and stuff, but soon you have to move on from being certification centric to where the employers can see true hands-on skills. And I'm guessing that there's only so many things you can change at a time. But Diego, talk to us through how you go from being maybe not certification centric, but it's pretty heavy in your mind. Then you're winning some grants and you're evolving to being hands-on. How did you do that?
And the thing is, at the associate's level, even though we're Miami-Dade College, our center is still the community college. It was, and then these are 2-year programs, and it's workforce development, and we want the students to come in and have a new opportunity. So we're talking about upwards mobility, generational wealth, and all those things that can be created. And you're 100% correct. So my student comes in and says, hey, so I'm teaching CISA+ this semester, and so if I pass the test, do I get $100,000 job? And I'm like, no. And they say, oh, so what are we doing? And I'm like, I'm preparing you to ace that interview. And then you're going to start from the bottom. But guess what? In 6 months, instead of 5 years, you can get a promotion. And then in a year, you can get a promotion. And it's happening to a lot of my students. So I'll share one small story. In my solutions architect class in the fall, I had 3 Amazon and AWS engineers in my class come in and help my students. The 3 Amazon engineers were my students. They were former students of mine,
okay.
not so recent, that are now cloud engineers at AWS and Amazon. So in that sense, you build it that way. Now, my students are the ones telling the new students, yes, this is real. You got to do it. So how do you leverage this? Industry certifications, great. Our program went in to become designated by the NSA. We had our Center of Academic Excellence. So we put in the NSA KUs, the knowledge units. The NSA has a series of knowledge units that if you build a program that you want it to be designated, these are the units of knowledge in cybersecurity that you should have. And so our program has them. So when we build the program from the beginning, we make sure it had that. Now we talk about certifications. We have that. We look at the state framework. Is there a framework for cybersecurity? There was one, so we used it instead of creating everything from scratch, because we got to go back to the state, and the state has to ratify our program and say, yes, this is a good program. And so you can go ahead and start teaching it. The next thing was the professional development. We talk about that. But how do we do the hands-on? So we became the second institution in the nation to have a cyber range. And that's where we started doing all kinds of crazy stuff. From the point that our own cybersecurity team at the college comes and trains at the cyber range. Some of the network people at the college trains us at cyber range. By the way, not only when you get designated, your cybersecurity program, AS and whatever you're doing, and our BS is about to be designated as well, your college has to have a good cybersecurity posture. So you got to bring the CISO from the college. You got to bring, and so we said, why don't you try out the cyber range? Let's see what is in here is really valuable, and it is. Our industry comes over and they check, and then at this point, multiple institutions from across the nation have come to visit to see what we have and see where our students are getting trained. So after we got the industry at the beginning, 2, 3, 4 years later, we're telling industry, these are the graduates from the program that you have built. Where are the jobs? Where are the internships? And now they know that our students are getting the program that is designated, are getting industry certifications, and are training at a range that they themselves have come and see and tested out. So at that point, we're giving the students a wholesome program that really puts them, in that next level in order for them to get higher. So at that point, yes, hands-on is incredibly important. You want to know that they did put, hands and fingers to keyboard, and then they were able to actually execute a couple of things. And the last thing that we have done, we started with national competitions and local competitions in cybersecurity. We have a national cyber league team that is top 2 in the nation. We have done Capture the Flags, Cyber Patriot, and other competitions. Industry likes that because they knew if a student participated in one of those, they had to do a little more investigative analysis in order to be successful in one of those.
And I think also when they practice on a cyber range, it's not only what they know, it's also their confidence when they show up to interviews. After they've been through a competition, they know what to expect. So they seem more confident also when they're going to hunt this job eventually.
Diego, it's often quite a lift to go from the immersive labs and those kind of labs that you can procure. And I use those labs a lot as well. I'm not being disrespectful, but what I quite often found is that I would call them click next labs. Do this, then do this. But you had to make the investment in your students. You had to make the investments in a range, but you also had to make the change, I'm guessing, in the curricula itself to best take advantage of this. Can you kind of go back in time if you can? How did you make that shift from those kind of click next labs to something that's truly immersive, something that challenges the student to think? How did you make that shift?
Yes. And I agree with you 100%. So my first summer bootcamp in 2017, we didn't have any of this. So what we did is we downloaded VMware, we downloaded an ISO for a server, we downloaded an ISO for a workstation, we built them both, then we built an FTP server, then we fired Wireshark, and then we try to log into the server and realize that FTP username and password go clear text, even though you get the little stars on your password that gives you that false sense of security. So, but that will take us an entire semester. It's a lot. So now with the virtual machines, with the real labs, simulations are great, but simulations are just that. It simulates something, but if you click in the wrong place, it can still give you that sense. But having a system like the Cyber Range in which you have different types of scenarios, you can go from a video that shows you how to you clicking in a couple of places to a real life scenario where everything is breaking and you got to go in and investigate. That is a more wholesome environment. And again, the virtual labs are increasingly important. My students say, hey, the lab failed. What did he fail? What did he say? This, say this. Well, probably you went to have dinner after you started the lab and it disconnected on the back end, because that's what virtual labs do. You're connected to something virtually. If you go away for a period of time and they're like, oh, I didn't know he did that. Yes, these are real scenarios with real machines that you're touching, and that gives the students a much real sense of what they are going to encounter once they go into the actual workforce.
How did you fund it, though, and getting, redesigning the curriculum and the investment in your instructors? How did you fund the change in the program?
So, and again, the funding came from the college, trusting that this was going to be something that was going to bring back dividends for the college, but that our community was going to be improved through these programs and the way that we do them, through grants. Again, grant writing has become something that our school does very well now, and it funds a lot of these programs to help our students in that way. And the nice thing I like about the design of these programs now, as they have evolved, I just talked to a couple of the faculty in our bachelor's program. How are you using the range? Well, the range allows me to create a class, and then that class I can say from beginning to end what my students are going to be using for that particular class. In another sense, if I'm teaching CISA+ and I say, hey, what are the scenarios that will prepare the students for this? Then we have a more targeted way of doing this that benefits our students much more. But funding came from an idea of seeing that this could be a future, and now is here to stay in a sustainable way at the moment.
So you say you started off like CompTIA and EC Council centric. You're using some of their tools. You're using some of the low cost things you can invest. You redesign your curricula. You get focused around the NSA, KUs, and other things. It just takes time and effort, but it's hugely valuable. Now, in the last few years, you've migrated to a true hands-on program that is, as best you can, simulating the environment they're going to see in the real world. Now, I have not asked you this question before, but I know you're always going to speak the truth and love and tell me what I need to hear. How have you seen the change in the students and what they bring to the market over the last couple of years? How have they changed?
So, and I think the students have benefited from the program in the way it was developed and built. But last year, we had 70 to 100 students intern in cybersecurity positions in South Florida. And so in that way, the industry is seeing the value. They want our students. They see what we are putting into our students, and they want that in their workforce. And then our students are seeing the success of the previous students. And again, nothing more than your current alumni, not the ones that graduated 20 years ago, but the ones that graduated 1, 2, 3 years ago that are coming back and are saying, and then they share those real, experiences. Sure, the program is going to give you all this, but you're going to have to go and be ready to work. But if you are, our students are coming in with a totally different perspective. The ones to come to my class because they want to get certified in addition to everything else, they come with a different perspective. They're ready. They know that this is a true value into what they're doing, and it's going to enhance and make them better candidates once they go and hit the open market. But we're trying to get them internships before they graduate. Internships do lead to real jobs, and in that sense, the student population at our college is believing in what we have done, and they've seen the results from the previous ones, and that helps.
Adam,
You're
muted.
In our next session, we'll delve into how you got your CAE designation, the status of your competency. We'll do that next time. But there's some really good questions in the chat I'd like to navigate to value everybody's time. So we talked about how you went from theoretical to hands-on, Joseph. Hopefully we've answered that question, or Diego has. And then you ask a question about, Joseph has a really good question about higher education approach, the boot camp versus higher education. Diego, can I assume that the boot camp is one of those classic full-time or near full-time, as opposed to higher education, where you have to weave it into things that give people, education credits?
Yes, so let me answer that. Let me go back to 2017 because it will help. The dean gets hired, comes to my office, says, hey, I need somebody to do Security Plus, a boot camp, and they send me to you because of your background. And I said, no, I don't do boot camps. And the reason for that is at the time in our country, we had an institution called ITT Tech that what they were offering was boot camps, and they were offering, life-changing things, and it didn't happen. They went bankrupt and they disappeared. So for that reason, I say I'm not a bootcamp professor, I'm a college professor, I'm a for credit. But I said, you know what? If we do it in the same way and in the same amount of time, we can provide these students with the knowledge, with the skills. So I tell my students, sure, you're gonna get certified, we're gonna go for that, but I need you to know the subject matter. I need you to be able to help hold your own in a job interview. And if they see Security Plus, they're gonna ask you Security Plus questions. And if you only train to take an exam, that's not going to be enough. We're going to learn everything. And in addition, we'll prepare to take the certification exam. And so what we've done is our boot camps are created in a way that you got to use the same content that I will use in a semester-long for credit class that maps to Security Plus. And what we do is if you get certified and get this the certificate, we can actually give you credit by exam. You don't have to sit in the same class if you already did it and got certified. So we can give you credit for that one. Not all of our classes, have certification, but the one that do, if you do get it, so not just the training, very important, not that you went to a bootcamp and trained, you actually passed the certification. And that can give you some credits and help you along the way into getting our program.
Awesome. Then to provide context to Joseph's next question about the difference between undergraduate versus graduate courses and the emphasis, can you give everybody a background of the kind of degrees or the actual degrees and certifications your program offers?
Yes, so we started with college credit certificate CCC in cybersecurity, and now it's called cybersecurity analyst to map to the state. It's 6 courses, and it's undergraduate. So this is for Adam or Chahar that have a master's, an MBA, and you want to get into cybersecurity to pad that degree up. You don't want another degree. You just want a quick certificate. So that's 6 classes. 4 of the classes map to industry certifications, Network Plus, because I saw another question about that, Network Plus, Security Plus, CISA Plus, and Linux Plus. And so if you do that and get the certifications with your other background, this is very good. Other students just want that. They just want a quick certificate because they had a low level or low paying job and they just want to start. Or they don't think they're ready for college, which we also use those CCC as a venue to say, hey, now you're in college and it wasn't that bad. Why don't you go now for the associates? So that's our CCC. Our associate in science in cybersecurity was our big program and the first one to get designated by the National Security Agency. And now we have the bachelor's in cybersecurity that we just put out for designation as well. Just to give you a little background, 2019 is when, fall of 2019, we launched our associates, and spring of 2021, we launched our bachelor's. And we are where we are right now. So these are not programs that have been on for years. We really started, that 2017 was our starting point in what we have done.
Any other industry certifications that the college focuses on?
Yes, so at the bachelor's level, because these are a lot higher level, we do have certified ethical hacker, we have forensics, we have all the ones that the students, we are currently thinking of maybe adopting new ones, looking into different frameworks, the CISA and CISM, and other ones, we're looking at IC Square. Will there be a place for a CISSP, or is that too high level for an undergraduate? And at that point, the question to a graduate program that has certified ethical hacker, CISSP, and some of these other CCSP, which is the certified cloud from IC Square, those one would be more mapping to a graduate program, I would think. But in that sense, yes, we use a lot. We have A+, we have a Cisco Academy if the students want to do that. And through our cyber range, we actually do some professional development and trainings of our own, and we have badges, digital badges for students that just want to do a course that is not so advanced. We also have some of those.
So thanks. good questions here. Fatima asks a question around the core cybersecurity courses your program offers in the bachelor. I think you've answered that, but if there's other ones, Fatima, please feel free to drop a question. And then the question here around the specific cybersecurity framework you're using in your cybersecurity lab. I have to admit, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in that sense, I don't know if the framework you're talking about is like an actual framework, one of the ones we teach the students. But the framework that we use is based on the state framework and the courses that they had. And then from there, we go, so in our undergraduates, and the core of our CCC is Network Plus, Security Plus, CISA Plus, and Linux Plus. And at that point, that's kind of the framework of the labs that we use to make sure that the students do some hands-on that will help them learn more as they prepare for these certifications or take these courses. So in that sense, we have been able to create entire courses that map to each one of these individual classes to help the students. By the end, they have taken so many that some of these things are not, and the one thing is, everything that they do is not mutually exclusive. They are very inclusive. Things that they learn in Network Plus, they follow up in Security Plus, they do in CISA Plus, then Linux Plus. Then as they progress, it gets much better, but the bulk of the experience and hands-ons that they're getting, it really adds up throughout the semesters and the classes they take.
Well, coming back, Joe, to the curriculum, Joseph asked an interesting question around the standard base topics, math, physics, how does that play, hardware and software, how does that play into your curriculum, and how does it address the learning of the cyber student in the workforce?
So, I don't know if I understand the question, but the basis of the program, we do have the general education studies, the math and everything else. As we know, math is one of the things, especially at the two-year level, in which students have the hardest of time. So it's not math intensive. College algebra will be enough for them to understand and be able to move through the program. So in that sense, I don't know if that's the question, but that they're not taking Calculus 1. This is not computer science degree in that sense, in which Calculus 1, Calculus 2, linear algebra or something like that will have to be done. Our students are not doing that. That level of math is not required for what our students are doing. And
you're probably not getting into hardware and software architecture and patterns and how they're designed, but maybe the basics of what a TMP is and how memory and IO and bus, but you probably don't have time to get into the details of hardware, nor is it probably really a value to them.
Not because it's not a computer science class. So the difference between the AS and BS so the BS, Bachelor's of Science, the AS, the Associate in Science, and the Associate in Science tends to be a terminal degree, meaning you're not transferring. But since they're staying with us, now they can go right into our Bachelor's in Science, and it can, so in the way to answer that question, we're producing workforce ready students. So somebody asked also earlier in the conversation, is this theoretical or this hands-on? Ours is very hands-on. We want you to have touched as many systems, since as many scenarios as possible before you actually go into the workforce. Because we're not just thinking of you transferring, we're thinking every single one of our students is going to hit the workforce, and we want them to be as workforce want them ready on day one, but how close to that we can get them. But the industry knows there's going to have to be an investment, but they're finding that we do have great matches for them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks. The only other thing I would add that quite often I found a lot of value in making sure they understood the basics of statistics. Quite often they'll see patterns and behaviors, and students who don't have a background, like you said, algebra, but also statistics, sometimes can misunderstand the data, especially when you get to where, the average can be quite misleading if you don't understand the distribution and correlations and fits and stuff.
So let me add something. On the first bootcamp, I did something, and now the college has institutionalized that. So on the first bootcamp, on Wednesday morning, I told all my students, you're going to dress up, and we're going to come in, and the morning session is going to be interview prep. You're going to come in, you're going to shake my hand, we're going to have a conversation, I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer. It's okay if you don't know something. But if you show that, you know what, I didn't do that, but in this lab, in this internship, in this place, I did this, they're going to see a value that you are able to do research, that you're willing to, go that extra mile, that you're looking, and so in that sense, our students need as much soft skills and something that we haven't talked about as they need technical skills. How do you behave? Our students are not going to be in a basement 24/7. They are going to have to be in meetings, committees with different level managers. And we got to prepare our students for that as well. We don't want them to just be super technical. We actually have an arm of the college that now helps them with resume writing, interview prep. We actually have a business closet in many campuses. So you have a business interview and you do not have the clothes, you can go in and borrow them, and then we, dry clean them and give it to the next person. So we had thought of everything that really will help our students get that job in the next one. And David is asking a question, and I want to talk about that. Is there a progression of courses? Yes. So we start with Network Plus, Security Plus, that's the basis. CISA Plus, those are the two prerequisites. Same thing with Linux Plus. And then you gotta have the base of our associates done before you can apply for the bachelor's degree. So in that way, there is a progression in there. Internships. So somebody asked about industry. We have something called a business industry leadership team, and we just had a meeting this week with them in which we talk about what our programs are doing. They were sitting in the cyber range when we were developing the programs, and they said, yes, that subject matters. No, that doesn't matter too much. Yes, that matters a lot. Oh, you got to teach them this. Oh, we don't see this, and you should have it. You know what? You have too much of that. So the industry, we really gave them a seat at the table. And so that relationship has built throughout the years that they now have trust in us, and we have trust in them. And they know the type of students that we're producing. And if a student goes there and doesn't do good, they will immediately let us know. Same way as if the student is doing great, they will let us know. So that's how we build that industry leadership kind of relationship that goes both ways 100%. If they have something to say, they will come and tell us. And then how do we implement that? How do we make changes? How do we improve into those areas so that our students are much better? And they're the ones that also say, hey, you need to work on soft skills a little. They need to be able to go into a meeting and take notes and then do all that stuff. So we work on all those aspects, but we have a great relationship with industry. We meet on a regular basis. And again, anybody hires one of our students, they do that. The internship process, it was with the same industry. We had a basis, and then once we started graduating students or getting there, we were like, hey, what are the jobs? And then they started offering things to our students that our students latch on immediately because they had done a lot of the different things to make them much better prepared.
Excellent. Yeah. So the people that have attended our podcast before recognize one of my things I always mention is I hate it when they're called soft skills because they're hard. In some cases, they're harder than the quote unquote hard skills, but good on you because you got to practice it. You got to work it. You got to make it as realistic as you can. And so in the next session, we'll talk about the CAA, go into more detail about your industry partnerships and what that means. We want to value everybody's time here today. But Diego, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and how you got to where you are. But come back to some of the questions that were mentioned earlier. You have matured this program now. You have been at it, quote unquote, only 6.5, 7 years. Can you give us a summary of the size of your program now, the number of students you have, and what are they prepared for? SOC analysts, defense analysts, network analysts. Summarize that for us, if you would.
Yeah, so the size of our program, and now we have a bachelor's in addition to our CCC and our AS, is about 1,000 to 1,200 students. We have been able to get, and again, the state of Florida, and I think we have to have a conversation more, right? Write it down, ask me about the state involvement in what we have done. But the state of Florida did an investment in cybersecurity. They provided us with funding in which we were able to provide scholarships to many students. So more students will come in and get the training they need. Again, Miami-Dade College is an open college, meaning anyone can come in and get an education. So in that sense, that's what we do. We kind of work in there to be able to create those opportunities for those students. But we do have SOC analysts right now. We do have, network engineers. Something that the industry is asking a lot about is we want security cloud engineers and cloud security engineers. So what I do to my students, the ones that are doing cyber, I make them take some cloud courses. The ones that are doing cloud, I'm making them as their electives take cybersecurity, and they're getting those jobs. But I also tell my students, you're going to have to get entry-level positions as well. And you got to be okay with that for the first 6 months in a year. But if you get in and you show that you have what it takes, they're going to be ready to promote you and keep you in that way. And if not, you're going to get some good experience, and then you keep moving just like, every other professional. But so we do have some SOC analysts, we have some cloud engineers, we have some security engineers, network managers, and everything else. A lot of entry level that will lead to some of these jobs as well. Even bachelor's or master's degree with no experience, even if you say you have all this hands-on, but it's not really from an employer, it is hard to get an entry level of, an high entry level job. You're still gonna have to come in at the bottom and prove yourself. But the nice thing is promotions start happening faster. My students come in 6 months, a year. They have, 1-2 promotions done because they have way more than somebody else in a similar program somewhere else.
Well, Diego, I'm going to be rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. I knew that we would need a lot of time from you. I knew we would want multiple sessions from you. Thank you so much. And to value everybody's time, what I'd like to challenge our audience to do is think of the questions that you would like for us to pester you with in the next session. We'll go deeper into your CAE designation, what makes your students unique because of your emphasis on hands-on, how you've engaged with the industry partners, because now they can see live, they can see what your students are learning and how they develop it. So anyway, thank you so much for your time, Diego. I wanted to keep this well under an hour, and we've got a little longer, but thank you so much for the great questions from our audience. Please keep them coming. We'll package this up, but please, Shahar, if you could remind us the next session and challenge everybody to bring their questions to that. But Diego, thank you so much for your time today, and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
See you in 2 weeks.
So Shahar, we're on in 2 weeks with Diego again.
Yeah, we're going to see Diego again, luckily. So as Adam said, please prepare your questions for the next session, which will be on the 29th. I just put Cyberbits LinkedIn link in the chat, so please make sure to follow. That's where we post all the updates and the upcoming sessions. And yeah, prepare questions for the next time. We're going to dig deeper into getting the CAE designation and way more interesting and many more other interesting things. This session, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube, on Cyberbits YouTube channel. It will be out in a few days. And yeah, and again, thank you so much, Diego. I learned a lot. It was such an interesting session today. Thank you, Adam, and a huge thank you to all our audience, and great questions, everyone, really.
All right, thanks, team. We'll see you in the next session.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.